I am not doing an analysis of SONA, but you're gonna want to see this. South Africa is back under state of disaster, this time over load shedding. Cyril Ramaphosa almost gets a PK from Julius Malema. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the News in 5. I'm your host Joe Emilio. Thanks for tuning in. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for your awesome support. Thank you so much for liking and sharing, because now we have hit 8,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. I hope to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, which by the looks of things looks like I am going to achieve that goal. But thank you guys so much for supporting. And if you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing and becoming part of the 8,000 that we have at the moment. Thank you guys once again, and thanks to all of you that keep coming back and watching the content. It is greatly appreciated. Anyway, with that being said, let's get into it. Alright ladies and gentlemen, so SONA happened this past week, as most of you know, and again, I am not going to go into some deep analysis about it. It's really not worth my time, but I thought that I would share with you some highlights that happened that evening. Let's start with this clip.
There's no way. Why?
Yeah, South Africa in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen. I really do think she's on her own station here. Kind of reminds me of that funeral, you remember, with all those cops that were just not coordinating quite well? Maybe she was opening the door for that imaginary friend. Anyways, we move on, ladies and gentlemen, to the big highlight of the evening, which wasn't anything Cyril said, but rather it was what the EFF did. Obviously, EFF doing what they do best, which is interrupting or disrupting the proceedings. Now, it wasn't just Julius who tried to storm the stage, it was the entire EFF. It was a moment that was shades of Will Smith at the Oscar. It was like Julius wanted to bitch slap Cyril, which if it had happened, I wouldn't have blamed him. But isn't it fitting to make that comparison between the Oscars and SONA? I mean, after all, SONA is like the Oscars of South Africa. All the politicians come dressed to the nines and there's a red carpet. And they are, after all, just playing an act here. Playing a character. Cyril, standing on that stage, said nothing of substance. He just lied and lied and lied. And before I leave this topic, I just wanted to show this moment as well. Look at the strength. I feel like this moment demands a little bit of music. 1 second.
Here it comes! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
I couldn't help myself. But anyway, the big topic from last night is this. South Africa declares a national state of disaster over load shedding. Let the looting begin.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
But here is the kicker of the article, ladies and gentlemen. Ramaphosa said that the Auditor General will be brought in to track spending and funding involved with the crisis to ensure that money is handled appropriately, and so that the same looting that took place during the COVID crisis is not repeated.
Cyril Ramaphosa, he can lie to you with a straight nose.
Adding to the oversight of the energy crisis, the president said that he would also be establishing a new minister within the presidency to focus exclusively on the crisis.
Right.
I'm not an idiot.
A minister of electricity. He's basically going to be either the fall guy or the guy to make sure that, you know, the looting and the heist happens successfully. And here's the thing. No one believes Cyril Ramaphosa right now. Everyone's rolling their eyes. Everyone's just like, yeah, we've heard that before. Need I remind you once again of the 500 billion rand that went missing? And that is just the tip of the iceberg with all the craziness that happened in the previous national state of disaster. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, there is something else that I would like to share with you. As I've mentioned before in a previous video, there is a protest on the 11th of February against load shedding and against the tariff increase at Eskom. If you're in Cape Town, please try and come through. If you are unable to attend, I will be live streaming it. The link is in the description below. And there is more information in the description below about the march itself. So why am I bringing this up? Well, there is a bit of a concern that because we're back in a state of disaster, that means that the state of disaster regulations that we had before during lockdown are gonna come back. Here is Daniel Elof, an advocate in South Africa. He works for Hertus Spears. He was also involved in the fight against some of the regulations during lockdown and won. So there is no better person to ask about the current state of disaster. Here's what he had to say.
So the big difference between the two state of disasters will likely be what measures they implement to combat the so-called disaster. So all the restrictions on movement and, what you can buy and what you can't buy and mask wearing and etc. that we had with the COVID state of disaster, those were measures implemented in terms of the state of disaster. We're still waiting to see what measures government will put in place regarding the Eskom or the electricity disaster that they've now declared. But it's highly unlikely that they'll have any restrictions on movement or which food you could buy and business hours and curfews, etc. I think the main reason the government wants a state of disaster is three things. I think the one is they want the powers to skip some of the procurement requirements, sort of the bureaucracy, so that they can quickly procure additional power and resources or generation capacity. Secondly, I think they want to get additional funding, which they can get from Treasury now that the disaster has been declared, so they need additional money. And I think they will likely use it to sort of circumvent some other regulations regarding electricity generation and distribution, etc. So we're still waiting to see what measures they'll put in place, but no, certainly it's not going to be the same as the COVID lockdown.
I also reached out to David Ansara from the Free Market Foundation, who had this to say.
The state of disaster does enable the minister or cabinet to bypass certain rules and laws. I'm not sure about the gatherings and all that stuff. I doubt that would be implemented, but I think the concern that I would have is that businesses, maybe high energy intensive users, might be told to moderate their consumption, things like that, that you have this kind of centralization of control over the economy. So if you remember with the COVID lockdown, the rules just kind of spun out of control, like with the chicken and the open-toed shoes and all that stuff. So those particular regulations might not come in, but you could have other silly regulations, like you're not allowed to sell electric irons or electric heaters or something like that. So that's just my kind of top of the head feeling. And I think my response would be just the government already has the power to change those regulations. They must just change the regulations that are standing in the way rather than imposing this state of disaster.
So it's clear, ladies and gentlemen, that just because we're in a state of disaster doesn't mean that regulations from a previous state of disaster are going to be re-implemented. This current state of disaster is for load shedding, whereas the previous one was for a virus. However, that doesn't mean that the ANC isn't going to use their imagination in order to abuse their power once again. Please leave a comment in the comment section below. Do you believe Cyril or the ANC? Do you really think they're going to be able to fix the energy crisis? Let me know what your thoughts are on the EFF and some of the videos I showed you. If you enjoy this content, you might enjoy these videos. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, enjoy your weekend. I hope to see you at the march. If I don't, enjoy your weekend, stay safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.